You've got to be kidding me. That was President Trump's reaction and response when he spoke with CNN and was asked about these newly uncovered photos and video, offering a new look at his past ties to Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to show you some of them. A photo from 1993 showing Epstein at Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. Epstein's attendance at the wedding has not been widely known until now. Another photo, this one from 1993, also shows Trump with his children next to Jeffrey Epstein at a restaurant opening. And CNN's K-File also uncovered this video showing Trump and Epstein in 1999 at a Victoria's Secret fashion show. All of these, given the dates, taken long before Jeffrey Epstein was ever accused of sexual abuse. President Trump has never been accused of any wrongdoing linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Still, he continues and is taking distract and deflect to a new level. Today, lawmakers are going to be heading home for recess, and that is despite the last-minute push that has been coming from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to force a release of more information regarding Jeffrey Epstein and the government's investigation. CNN's Lauren Fox is on Capitol Hill. Elena Treen is at the White House. Elena, what is the White House saying about this?
Yeah, well, in relation to this new exclusive reporting from Andrew Kaczynski and M. Steck, we do know that Andrew, and I spoke with him about this, called up President Donald Trump yesterday to walk through some of these photos that they had uncovered. Again, and you mentioned this, a lot of these photos and the footage of both Trump, then just a civilian, and Jeffrey Epstein were more than a decade before he began to face allegations, Jeffrey Epstein, of sex trafficking and abuse of minors. But I want to tell you what that phone call was like. So Andrew said that he called Donald Trump and the president told him, "You've got to be kidding me," before repeatedly referring to CNN as fake news and hanging up. So it was a very brief phone call. But then we also got this statement from White House Communications Director Stephen Chung that I'm going to read for you. He said, quote, "These are nothing more than out of context frame grabs of innocuous videos and pictures of widely attended events to disgustingly infer something nefarious. The fact is that the president kicked him out of his club for being a creep. There is nothing more than a continuation of the fake news stories concocted by the Democrats and the liberal media." Now, Kate, the relationship and the friendship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein is well known. That has been documented. But I do think these photos and these new photos that both Andrew and M have uncovered for CNN really do fill in the blanks of some more details of their relationship. There hasn't been many videos of them together, but you can see in these photos that they were close. They were at that fashion show in 1993 where you could see, 1999, a Victoria's Secret fashion show. You can see them huddled together, chatting. They were also leaning over and talking to each other while they were seated for the show. Melania Trump, now of course the First Lady, was also there. And I think the reason that these are so important is because so many questions right now are about why the Trump administration is not doing what many of officials who are in the highest levels of the government here in this White House had been saying before they even took office, which was, that they believed the Epstein files needed to be published, that there was more to be uncovered. And so many people are questioning now why that isn't happening and really criticizing the administration's handling of this. And even some of the president's fiercest supporters, people like Laura Loomer, who I talked to yesterday, they're saying that the actions that both this administration and specifically the Justice Department are taking to kind of, try and quell some of the dissatisfaction over their handling of it isn't enough. So this isn't going away. We'll see whether or not we hear more from the president and the White House on this today. Kate.
Absolutely, Elena. Now, let me bring in Lauren Fox on this now, because the drumbeat is really coming from Capitol Hill. The demand for more information from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, and a growing number of Republicans saying that more needs to be released and known. But where do things stand with that, given that the House Speaker said nothing until September? What are you hearing today?
Yeah, Kate, and that drumbeat is really also coming from the constituents that they are hearing from phone calls and messages that they are getting from Republican voters who feel like they want more information. I think a lot of Republicans are feeling that pressure, and they're feeling caught in between Donald Trump, who they're very loyal to, and the fact that their voters expect more. There were several really key developments yesterday. The House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer said that he does plan to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell for a deposition in the next several days. He says that it may take time to play out and negotiate exactly how that deposition will unfold, but he laid out that he plans to go to the federal prison and interview her, and then at some point thereafter release the public transcript. But that does not mean that Republicans don't want further information being released from the Justice Department. Here's what Comer said about what he thinks the Justice Department should do, given the fact that so many Republicans are clamoring for more information.
Well, I think Congress wants them to release what they have. There's no question. That's no secret. You all have been reporting that. The overwhelming majority of Republicans in Congress want to see the administration release the Epstein files. That's what we hear back home from our constituents, and I think that message has been relayed. There may be reasons because of protecting, people in further investigations. I understand why it would be difficult to release it.
Now, Speaker Johnson tried to implore his members to give the White House, give Donald Trump, give the Justice Department more time instead of just continuing to put this pressure on them. Lawmakers are set to leave from the House of Representatives for a month-long recess starting today, in part because the House Rules Committee was completely stymied from moving forward with further business because of this issue just getting in the way of the House's ability to do additional work. So that just gives you a sense right now that this is not going away on Capitol Hill. We'll see what happens in a month's time when they return in September.
Absolutely. Lauren, thank you so much. Let's see what you hear on the Hill today. Elena Trina at the White House. Much more to come from there as well. John?
All right, with us now, Spectrum News political anchor and host of the Big Deal podcast, Errol Lewis, and CNN political analyst and Washington bureau chief of the paper of record, the Boston Globe, Jackie Kucinich, is here. Thank you both. Errol, you're from New York. You grew up in this city at the time when Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, we are now seeing, were going to events together and in photos now together. Now, this was years before any of the criminal allegations of Jeffrey Epstein first surfaced. But when you see these photos unearthed by the K-File of this apparently very friendly relationship between the two men, what's your takeaway? Well,
look, the reality is that among the ultra wealthy, the celebrity class and culture in New York City, especially in the 1990s, it's sort of a small town in the big city. Everybody was at everybody else's parties. Everybody knew where to find them. There were lots of pictures taken. There were lots of photos. The thing that's so poisonous about conspiracy theories as a form of disinformation is that it's a closed loop and you can never get out of it. If there's a photo or footage, people seen together, you say, oh, there's clearly some connection. If there's no photo of them together, people say, well, what are they hiding? And you just can't get out of it. And as Donald Trump has built his political career around conspiracy theory, starting with birtherism, he's basically created a Frankenstein's monster that is now broken out of the lab and is chasing him down Pennsylvania Avenue. Every photo that shows him anywhere near Epstein is going to be more fuel for the fire of this gigantic constituency for this conspiracy theory that Donald Trump himself helped to build.
It was so interesting to hear from Chairman James Comer, Jackie, talking to Manu, saying that he is hearing from constituents back home, which is so interesting when you have other Republicans administration officials denying that there is any interest out there. These members are absolutely hearing it from their constituents. So how excited are they to leave Washington and go home to that?
Well, that's the thing, is this is being pushed from back home. You talk to members on the Hill and they're getting calls into their offices about this. So this won't go away when they go back home. And the fact of the matter is, President Trump isn't going to run again. All of these members of the House have to run again. So they're going home. They're having to talk to their constituents about this, if they're even having town halls, instead of selling the legislative package and the tax cuts that they just pulled through. They're stuck talking about Epstein. That's not the media's fault. That's because their constituents, a lot of them in the MAGA base, are very interested and were promised transparency when it comes to the Epstein files.
And I keep waiting. The White House clearly wants to move on from this, Jackie, for the first day of nothing. in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. And I'm not even talking about the CNN exclusive here with the photos, but the Justice Department reaching out to Ghislaine Maxwell, House Republicans issuing a subpoena for her, largely driven at this point by either the Trump administration or the Trump allies. They're pushing this story forward.
Well, exactly. And that's one of the, yes, they are adjourning today for the summer recess. However, we know that there's also a discharge petition, which is a procedural measure that could force a vote to push them to the administration to release the Epstein files. So they're basically guaranteeing that this saga continues and bleeds into the fall.